Did Elvis really sing about a hound dog crying all the time? Was the king of rock and roll sometimes lyrically awkward? Ever wonder if Elvis Presley, musical legend and cultural icon, had moments when his song lyrics made fans raise an eyebrow? Number 5. Are You Lonesome Tonight's spoken monologue? Ever heard a song suddenly shift into Shakespeare? In Are You Lonesome Tonight, Elvis takes a beautiful ballad and drops in a spoken word section that compares a relationship to a stage play. The transition from smooth crooner to dramatic theater actor comes out of nowhere and feels totally disconnected from the rest of the song. The spoken part references lines about the world being a stage and people merely being players, which feels oddly formal and stiff coming from the usually hip-swinging Elvis. This theatrical monologue breaks the emotional spell of an otherwise touching song about missing someone. Many fans find themselves either skipping this section or feeling pulled out of the mood when listening. What makes this particularly cringe-worthy is how the spoken section suddenly transforms Elvis from a heartbroken lover into something resembling a Shakespearean actor. The dramatic shift in tone creates an awkward moment that interrupts the flow of what could have been a straightforward love song. Even Elvis himself famously struggled with keeping a straight face during live performances of this spoken section, occasionally bursting into laughter mid-monologue. When performing this song at a 1969 Las Vegas show, Elvis completely lost composure during the spoken part, creating what fans now call the laughing version. The chunk is how even he found this segment a bit much. The contrast between emotional singing and theatrical speaking creates a jarring effect that hasn't aged well with modern listeners. Despite this awkward break, the song remains one of Elvis's most beloved ballads, though many fans admit to feeling relieved when he returns to singing after the theatrical interlude. Number 4. Old Sheps Dog, Demise Drama. Can you imagine a grown man singing about a dog being put down? Elvis recorded Old Shep for his second RCA Victor album in 1956, telling the story of a boy and his beloved dog who eventually gets poisoned and must be euthanized. While pet loss songs certainly have their place, the level of detail and melodrama in this one crosses into uncomfortable territory. The song builds to a climax, where the narrator describes having to shoot his own dog, a surprisingly graphic image for a mainstream pop song. The overly sentimental lyrics, combined with the morbid subject matter, create a strange listening experience that feels out of place in Elvis's catalog of hip-shaking rock and roll and romantic ballads. Old Shep stands in stark contrast to Elvis's rebellious image, with its overly sentimental storytelling that borders on emotional manipulation. The song's detailed description of a dying dog and a crying child feels exploitative of pet loss grief, rather than a genuine tribute to animal companionship. Elvis actually performed this song at age 10 in a youth talent contest, making it one of his earliest public performances. While the sentiment behind honoring a beloved pet might be genuine, the execution veers into territory that makes modern listeners unemotional with its graphic narrative and emotionally manipulative lyrics. The song has become something of an oddity in the Elvis catalog, remembered more for its cringe factor than its artistic merit. Most casual Elvis fans are surprised to discover this maudlin tale of canine death sitting alongside his rock and roll classics. Number 3. Clean Up Your Own Backyard's Political Preaching. Did the king really try to lecture his fans? In 1969, Elvis released Clean Up Your Own Backyard, a song that awkwardly attempts to address social issues while simultaneously telling people to mind their own business. The conflicting message creates a confusing listening experience where Elvis seems to be both encouraging and discouraging social awareness. The song features clunky metaphors about keeping your own house in order before criticizing others, but the execution feels more like uncomfortable finger-wagging than thoughtful commentary. Coming from Elvis, who generally stayed away from overtly political statements in his music, this sudden shift into social commentary seems forced and out of character. What makes this particularly cringe-worthy is how the lyrics attempt to sound profound while delivering fairly simplistic ideas. The mixing of religious imagery with vague social criticism creates a muddled message that never quite lands effectively. The song tries to position Elvis as a deep thinker on social issues, a role that doesn't play to his strengths as a performer. The track was part of the soundtrack for the film The Trouble with Girls, one of Elvis's later movie projects that was struggling to keep him relevant as musical tastes changed. This attempt to make Elvis seem in touch with the social consciousness of the late 1960s instead highlights how disconnected he had become from the cultural conversations happening in music at that time. While Elvis would later demonstrate more nuanced social awareness in songs like In the Ghetto, this early attempt at messaging feels heavy-handed and uncomfortable. The preachiness contradicts Elvis's usual appeal as an entertainer, rather than a social commentator. Number 2. No Room to Ramba in a Sports Car's Literal Limitations. Have you ever heard a song about car dimensions? Elvis recorded No Room to Ramba in a sports car for the 1963 film Fun in Acapulco, and the title alone hints at the cringe to come. This song takes a single joke, that sports cars are too small for dancing, and stretches it into an entire song with increasingly awkward innuendos. The lyrics repeatedly emphasize the lack of space in a sports car for physical activity, with obvious double entendres that feel more silly than sexy. What makes this particularly cringe-worthy is how the song beats this single joke to death, offering no other substance beyond the initial premise that small cars limit movement. This track represents everything that went wrong with Elvis's movie song period, where quality control seemed non-existent and songs were created to fit movie scenes rather than to stand on their own merit. The forced rhymes and repetitive nature of the lyrics make it feel like a rushed production number rather than a genuine Elvis classic. The song's attempt at playful suggestiveness comes across as juvenile compared to Elvis's earlier, more naturally sensual performances. Instead of the organic sexuality that made early Elvis controversial and exciting, this song offers a scun-eyed, Hollywood-approved version of innuendo that feels manufactured and awkward. No Room to Ramba in a Sports Car exemplifies the creative decline of Elvis's middle period, when his management focused on quantity over quality for movie soundtracks. The song has become emblematic of the artistic compromises Elvis made during his Hollywood years, trading musical innovation for formulaic movie tie. Ins. Number 1. To the Clam's dance instruction disaster. Would you take dance lessons from a song? In 1965, Elvis recorded Do the Clam for the movie Girl, Happy, creating what many consider the low point of his dance craze songs. The track awkwardly attempts to start a new dance sensation called The Clam, complete with detailed instructions on how to perform movements that mimic a bivalve mollusk. The lyrics describe swaying back and forth while opening and closing arms like a clamshell, creating mental imagery that's more comical than cool. What makes this particularly cringe-worthy is how desperately the song tries to manufacture a dance trend, especially coming from Elvis, who had once been considered dangerously rebellious with his natural dance movements. To the Clam represents Elvis at his most commercially compromised, recording novelty songs for lightweight beach movies rather than the groundbreaking material that had established his legacy. The forced enthusiasm in his delivery makes it clear that even Elvis himself wasn't particularly invested in this Clam-based dance revolution. This track came during a period when Elvis's management was pushing quantity over quality, churning out movie soundtracks filled with forgettable songs. Do the Clam stands as perhaps the most egregious example of how far Elvis had strayed from his roots by the mid-1960s, trading artistic credibility for market-driven novelty tracks. The song's awkward dance instructions combined with its maritime theme create an unintentionally comical effect that's a far cry from the raw energy and sexuality that had initially made Elvis a cultural phenomenon. The song now serves as a time capsule of a period when Elvis's career was at its most commercially driven and artistically compromised. Does Elvis's immense talent and cultural impact outweigh these occasional lyrical missteps? Can we forgive the king for songs about dancing, clams, and car dimensions when he also gave us Suspicious Minds and Can't Help Falling in Love?